Hi, this is Ray Harwood. It's Bigfoot Quest magazine, and I'm interviewing Scott Violette from Bigfoot America, and I'm sporting their T-shirt. And Scott's going to tell us his background and how he got into squatching and some of his incredible experiences. And from here, Scott, go ahead and take it, and I'll ask questions if I need be or whatever you want to do.
All right. Thanks, Ray. And thanks for having me on. Well, what got me into Bigfooting was actually my career as an anthropologist. I'm a Native American cultural anthropologist, and my expertise is actually in pictographs and petroglyphs, if I can say them today. And, and I've worked with numerous tribes over my career, and every Native American tribe in the nation has a Bigfoot legend. So that's what kind of got me into it. Of course, I've always had kind of curiosity, growing up. I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I saw the Patterson film as a newsreel in a theater. They used to do these little newsreels before the movie back in the 60s, and so I saw the Patterson film, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. I thought, oh, they do exist. So, but of course, I did my career, and I actually went into the military after I got out. I went into anthropology, but after talking with a lot of Native American elders and seeing pictographs of Bigfoot on rocks, that got me into wanting to learn more about the history and legend of these things. And then if there's a legend, there's got to be some basis of fact in the legend. So I started doing research myself, and it was a 25-year quest, basically, until I actually saw one. So I got lucky because we have a website at squatchamerica.com, and people submit reports, and I got 5 reports in the same week in the same area from different people that didn't know each other. And I thought, well, there's where I need to be. So I hung out. It took me 3 days hanging out there, and we did run across a Bigfoot, and I got a decent blurry photo of one.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I guess so what I was thinking about asking when I was thinking about this was describe your life. Like, as an anthropologist, they have like the cultural anthropologist. What would a cultural anthropologist say about your lifestyle of the tracker, the researcher, and then going on tour? What's that lifestyle like? How could you describe that?
Like what we're doing now,
Yeah.
basically, as compared to what I used to. Well, when I was working in the academic world, I worked on a lot of like archaeological digs, and um, my job was to document pictographs and petroglyphs and things like that. There's a few that I ran across back in my day that I had brought up to whichever professor was running the dig at the time, for the university. I would say, well, this looks a lot like a Bigfoot stuff, and they would say, shh, don't talk about it. We're not going to put it in the paper because, we'll lose funding, kind of deal.
Right, right.
And I ran across some other really weird stuff too, not just the Bigfoot stuff. I ran across some, I would have to say, ancient alien kind of stuff too, which
Right.
I'm not really big into that, but if the evidence is there, the evidence is there,
And you feel
So,
that that stuff is censored because they don't want to disturb their paradigm, which they've been teaching for years.
well, yeah, that's one thing, and the other thing too is most universities, they run on funding, so they got to get grants and things like that. And if we start talking paranormal stuff, or cryptozoological things, that funding goes away, and
Oh, I
and
see.
it's all about the dollar, basically. So a lot of them. And in fact, when I was in college, my thesis I did paper was literally on the biometrics of Bigfoot compared to the biometrics of humans. And the professor, since that wasn't going to be published or anything, they were like, "Oh, that's kind of cool, I got an A on it." So that worked.
Mhm.
But
So,
go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so that kind of launched me into my Bigfoot career that I have now.
Mhm.
So after I retired from the academic world, and I was also, after I got out of the college, I worked with a couple tribes to help them kind of log their history in different areas. I was working with the Miwok tribe in California because they didn't have a treaty with the government because of they were lumped in with the Paiutes and they wanted to separate themselves and have their own treaty.
Uh,
So I helped them establish how long that tribe had been in like the Yosemite Valley area
mhm.
just by doing pictographs and petroglyphs and things like that.
Interesting.
So after I retired from that, that's when I kind of like, you know what, I've spent a lot of time looking at these Bigfoot pictographs and things, and I'm gonna uh, kind of launch out and see if I can find out more about this whole Bigfoot thing. And what I did was we started a Facebook page. At the time, I was actually living in Eastern Oregon in a little town called Baker City, which is in the heart of the Blue Mountains. And of course, we know about the Freeman film and all the Blue Mountain legends of Bigfoot there. And I thought,
Okay.
well, I'm in the perfect place. That was actually my hometown where I was born at.
Oh, wow.
But so we thought, well, just for fun, I'm going to throw up a Facebook page and a website and see if I can get reports. Uh, well, the local newspaper guy there, who's also into Bigfoot, uh, saw my page and he said, "Hey, can we do a paper, a little local newspaper in Baker City, Oregon? Can we do a story on you?" And I said, "Sure." So they did the story. It got picked up by the AP Newswire. And next thing I know, my website was crashing because there were so many people on it.
Oh,
I,
wow.
I mean, we were getting hundreds and hundreds of reports every day for the longest time about in the Blue Mountain stuff. So I started putting pins and maps and and going crazy with it, trying to figure out, oh my gosh, I can use all this information, and with my research background, I can throw this on maps and figure out the culture of these things, and that's what I've been trying to do. Of course, after my sighting, I'm not trying to prove that they exist anymore. Uh, I don't think we're ever going to do that, until there's a body on a table somewhere, and I'm not intending to shoot one to do that. But what I wanted to do is try to work on the culture, like how they live, what their family structures are like. Do they live in small groups or larger groups? Are they migratory? Things like
Wow.
that.
So, based on the knowledge you've accumulated over the years,
Mhm.
what would you consider like the day in a life of a Sasquatch, like in the Northwest, in the Blues?
I think it'd be more like, I think they're not okay. My theory, now this is my theory,
Right,
okay,
right.
that they are not an ape. They walk upright, they have small canine teeth. I think they're a relic hominid. I think they're an older version of human that hasn't evolved to where we are, or that, well, that's not how it worked anyway. But
Okay. So
but
maybe not a linear evolution, but like
ocean,
like a branch.
a branch, yes, that's a great way to put it. Yeah, it's
Not
it's like a
better or worse, just
different
they adapted this way and we adapted this way,
this
right?
way, exactly.
Okay.
So I think they live a lot like hunter gatherer, like we were a long time ago. Um, just I think they get up, they hunt, they fish, they gather they gather food for their family. I think they live in small family groups, according to what most of the research I've done and most of the reports we get. And that's what I'm using as reports from people. What did you see Bigfoot do? How many of them did you see? Stuff like that. So I do think they live in like small family groups, not in like communal. And I think they're not migratory per se, but they have ranges that they follow. Like this family's range, which could be hundreds of miles. And they follow food. So yeah, I think there's a pretty basic, simple hunter-gatherer existent life.
That makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
So when I contacted you first, it was about two nesting stones or clanking stones
Uh-huh.
that they'd found in the Olympic project
Hmm.
that you went and examined or researched that out.
Yeah.
Could you tell me the story of that experience?
Okay. Yeah, sure. That was Shane Corson with the Olympic Project. And those are the folks who found these two stones that were in a nest. And it kind of got me back into my archaeological times, because we used to do a lot of research with you know um, stone tools. Of course, it was just right up my alley. Stone tools, um, flint knapping, making arrowheads, things like that. And so uh, when you find these on archaeological digs and things like this, when you find the stones, you see how they're shaped in your hand, and how like, okay, this is the stone they used to make stuff with because of the shape of it, how it fits in your hand, things like that. So I was able to take those rocks and kind of look at them and hold them in my hand, like, okay, the size of them, because they're both kind of identical, and they weren't from where they were found in the nest. They had to be taken out of a river somewhere else, because these were washed rocks. So they were found down by the creek or whatever. They found two stones that were about the same size, and you could see where they were smacked together, and how you would hold it in your hand. um because you can take a rock and turn it in your hand until it feels good. And then so when you do that, you got it in your hand. I look at the face of them. I'm like, okay, this is where they held it in the hand, because this is the most comfortable place to hold it. And of course, the things where they went together was right there on top. So, that's the kind of research you kind of do. It's not super sciency, or accurate, but it gives you a good guesstimate, where you can just, okay, this is where they were cracking these rocks together as a signal.
And it took a lot of intellect to go and select two certain rocks
Hmm.
that had to be precise, pretty much,
Yeah.
for a couple different a systematic selection process. Has to be
Right.
this big. When we clank them, they can't break apart, so they have to be a certain density. They might
Uh-huh.
have went for tonality, like these rocks sound like this if they clank,
Yeah.
or
Right.
whatever. But they had to have forethought and the ability to select these specific tools, find them. I mean, not tools,
Hmm.
rocks, select them, and then of course they went with that ideal that they were going to select those. So it was forethought. Then they
Hmm.
transported them all the way up to the nesting grounds where I think were in huckleberry thickets.
Hmm.
So, but they purposely went through a thought process to select the rocks, transport the rocks, and then there was a functionality involved where it sounds like they were clanking them together. Or do you think they had them in case someone came, they could throw them? Or probably, since there were two identical, they probably were something they were holding on to.
Right. So
You
yeah.
can throw any rock, right? Any
Yeah.
rock can become a projectile, and like all you have to do is throw it, and then it's a projectile, right?
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And they are tools, to be honest with you. I mean, so when they were down at the river, they were probably picking up rocks, feeling them. Okay, not that one. It was a choice they made. These two are the rocks, and they were similar size. So when you clack them together, one's not going to break the other one. So they had the forethought of making sure they're about the same size. So yeah, so I believe that the Sasquatch is tool using intelligent and not tool making intelligent, but they're getting close, I think, because they do make the nest. That's a construction,
Uh,
thought. Um, so they're pretty. I think they're pretty close to making arrowheads
yeah.
myself.
Well,
Uh,
they're opportunists. Like
right,
they'll select an item that's already a tool,
right.
and it's not a tool until they use it as a tool.
hmm
And so that would make it like an opportunity, like they're opportunistic, like uh yeah, some people think like they would be opportunistic in like eating carrion off the street, but they wouldn't ordinarily do that. But since if the opportunity comes about, or if there's an ant hill and they find a stick that's straight, they might strip the leaves off and get the ants or the
hmm
termites. But they, but maybe not advanced tools, but like a very basic rudimentary opportunist type thing. They're going to select sticks that are already like arrowweed or something like that,
Right.
to, like to collect ants. And a tree knocker, they would obviously uh, have forethought to pick the right density of wood, the right length, the right thickness, and they
hmm
probably know which wood sounds what they, what they'd want. Now that's the next question I was going to ask you is what do you think of the tree knocking? Is as at one convention, and they were talking about this, and some people thought it was like gorilla chest beating or hand clapping or something they did with their mouth or an actual stick hitting a tree. My own experience, it sounded just like wood on wood, but I just wondered
hmm
what your thoughts on that one were.
Well, so as far as the tree knocking going, I think that's the as we spend a stupid amount of time in the woods. I do speak at a lot of conventions, but between the conventions, we're in the mountains.
Right.
So, because we live full time in an RV and we just stay in the hills. But I have got a lot more tree knocking experiences than anything else in the Bigfoot world. I mean, in my research, that's something we get the most of. So in my experience, I've tried to find big trees or big limbs, and I always end up breaking them, on the trees, um, trying to get that sound. My personal theory is I believe that they're not hitting trees with other sticks. I think they're hitting them with rocks. Um, and just hitting them hard enough with them, they make a lot of sound if you pick the right tree.
Right.
Um, so that's a possibility. I've got more rock clacks actually than tree knocks,
Huh.
in my experience.
That's interesting.
So I do think that stones are a huge tool that they use a lot of. They throw rocks at people. I've had that happen twice. They clack them together to make sounds. I think they're hitting trees with big rocks myself.
That makes sense.
Um, and as far as the tree knocks go, I believe that they use these for a couple different reasons. One is probably to locate each other in the woods as far as distance and where are you? Here's where I'm at, kind of thing. And I have been actually lured away from places with tree knocks. And I've one time in particular, we had found like a nest area in the woods, and then we heard tree knocks off in the distance, and then we heard what like it was like a coyote being killed. Basically, it was
Wow.
horrible, So we wanted to check that out. So we ran in that direction, and when we got to where the sound was coming from, there was nothing there. And then we heard a tree knock back at the nest area. It's like, okay, they just led us away from there, and
Right.
they're letting us know that, hey, okay, you can stop leading them away, kind of deal. So
So
um,
when you guys are the project and yourself talk about nesting areas, I think I've seen some, but not as I haven't seen one with weaving or any of that, but we do
mhm,
have huckleberries here, and I've seen prints in the huckleberry patches.
mhm,
And I found one area that was in a real dense thicket, and I don't know if this was wolves or Sasquatch or what, but there was like a nesting type environment, but no real construction, just like a real dense brushy area that had like bedding in it.
mhm.
And then you could see impressions, and then but there was bones, like bone fragments and miscellaneous bones, skeletal remains scattered around, like they've been eaten and discarded. And yeah, at one point I found a porcupine and it had literally been surgically, a surgical incision was made from its throat down to its hindquarters, and everything in it eaten from the inside out. So that was kind of strange. But what do you find in the nesting areas? I mean, describe a nesting area and what you find in context with those.
Okay, well, there's we've found like 3 different types. Well, actually, the Olympic Project, they have their like beds that are woven out of huckleberries. Um, I've never found anything like that. But we have one occasion found um, it was like like almost like a constructed igloo, I guess is the only way I can explain it. It was like a dome structure
Oh,
of trees woven together. It had, and I was very careful when we found it to do my due diligence, and I checked every tree limb in there. Not one of them was cut. They were all broken. Um, we found like a 3-inch limb that was woven into this thing that had literally been pulled straight off a tree, not broke, not bent over and broken, just pulled straight out of the tree.
oh yeah.
And then there was another one that had like a 4-inch fir tree that still had the root ball on it that was just pulled out of the ground and woven into this thing. So it was shaped like a dome. Basically, they had like a little opening towards the top of it, actually, kind of off the side a little bit, but towards the top. And the bottom was filled with fir boughs, completely uh, layered with fir boughs in the bottom of it.
Oh, that's impressive.
So it was 5 foot tall and 14 feet around.
Wow.
So um, we when we were doing our research on it, uh, I think we came to the conclusion. I think these are like cribs or playpens that they put your children in
Oh, wow.
when they go off doing something. Because another weird thing we found at this particular site is there was huge trees. I mean, big pine trees that had been pushed over to make a fence all the way around this thing.
Oh, wow.
So you literally had to climb over a tree to get to the where the nest was, so they could see you coming, basically. Um, Coincidentally, that's the same one we got led away from too by
Oh, wow.
by that. So I think those are my theory is those are constructed for a playpen, basically for the little ones. And then the only other one we was found just a bunch of fir boughs piled up like a little nest or something to sit on, basically. But what's interesting is we found these like 9-inch footprints around this nest area, but we found a bunch of little 3 and 4-inch footprints uh, around it too. And it's down by a pond. It's like, okay, I'm gonna break off some limbs, make me a little place to sit down here and watch the kid play by the river, or
Wow.
by the water. So I think they make nests to sit on, basically just like mountain gorillas do. Basically, every time they go, they
Right.
make a little nest to sit on.
That makes a
So,
lot of sense. And the rock throwing is, I've heard of bonobos. I think it was bonobos throwing rocks at hollow logs, hollow trees,
mhm,
as
yeah.
like almost ritualistic type thing. Uh, and that's pretty interesting. And of course, the gorillas with their nests. So what's your, since we're kind of going down the structures, what do you think of the structures and the different types?
What do
Well,
I
people
think?
see, like people say this is a teepee structure, this is like
Okay.
a log structure or a branch structure or a
Mm-hmm.
hunting blind or
Mm-hmm.
um, like some people
Okay.
say it's a marker for their territory or and that sort of
Okay.
discussion type
All
thing.
right. So as far as my working theories on some of these are, we find these X structures, these two trees that are a lot of times we don't find where the trees came from. They're just packed in there and made this X thing. Um, I think those may be territorial areas. Like this is my family's territory, and your family stays over there, my family stays over here, kind of deal. Um, why we have found a TP structure just recently, actually, which I don't, where we found it and stuff, I don't think it was faked. I think it was a real deal. Um, but I'm not sure what those are because they're not covered. So they don't protect you from anything. They're just basically trees stacked up. Um, Tom Seawood, from Sasquatch Island, I was talking with him, and he seems to think, and it goes along with Native American culture because he's a Native American, but that they're red tents. What they mean is like that's where women construct those to sit there while they're on their period, basically, to keep the men away. That was his theory on that, and it makes a little bit of sense
Right,
actually if you
right.
think
It
about it.
does, yeah.
It's like, okay, this is my spot for right now, and leave me alone, basically. Uh, so, which could completely be feasible,
The
because I believe,
functionality instead of like, there's functionality and then there's spirituality, and
uh,
sometimes people mix them up. But I think
yeah,
functionality is the purpose for most of this stuff.
right, yeah, and I think just places to sleep, places to sit, and playpens for their babies, basically.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. That's interesting.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then as far as the glyphs, since that's your specialty,
Mhm. Uh-huh.
what have you seen? I mean, you've seen the X's, which a lot of it, I've seen the X's, all different sizes, some of them mammoth and some of them tiny.
Mhm.
And who knows what that means, but it's probably maybe territorial or something like you said. And
Mhm.
but what about the other glyphs? Have you seen any evidence of any other glyphs that might have different meanings?
I haven't. Um, I haven't personally seen any. I've had people tell me about them and show me pictures and things that are very interesting, because there was one actually in New Mexico that was very interesting. It was almost like a tunnel, the
Oh,
trees
wow.
bent over. Um, and I have no idea what that was for. But yeah, do you know what? To be honest with you, when we do an archaeological digs, we find some weird stuff every once in a while, and it could be just kids playing, basically. And
Right.
that's a theory that the juveniles just are learning to do things, and they just go make stuff. I take that back. I have seen two. There was two, like probably 3 foot tall, um, pine trees, just little ones that were right next to each other. Both of them had bent over and tied together, and like somebody tied it in a knot.
Uh,
And I thought that was kind of interesting.
yeah,
And
that's
like
interesting.
and I think maybe that it could be just as simple as kids playing.
Right. And what do you think of the rock stacking? You hear about the stacking of rocks.
I know people do that too much. That's the problem.
Yeah,
It's hard because it depends on where you find them, actually.
right.
If they're
Like a contract.
way off trail in the middle of freaking nowhere, then I'm thinking that could be more, Sasquatch related as opposed to people. Um, and that's something we run into in this research a lot. Is this a person doing this, or is this um, a Sasquatch doing it? But so we tend to try to hike off trail in the middle of nowhere a lot.
Yeah.
And the rock stacking could be as just one, kids, two, two,
Mm.
it could be territorial. Um, we have actually put rocks out, and in fact, just a couple months ago, we took some flat rocks that were from the ocean, that we gathered while we were on the coast, and then took them up near Crater Lake up in the mountains and stacked them on stumps. And we've found those. We went on a deal for 2 weeks. We would stack those up, and they would be rearranged every night.
Oh, wow. That's
And
pretty strange.
yeah, they would get rearranged. We'd put them back, and then the next night they'd be rearranged again. And that we did find, it was a 6-inch footprint around those. So I think it was another kid messing with us.
So what that brings you to the see, we're talking about lost my train of thought. I'll drink some water while it comes back. Well, I'll just look over here.
Okay.
About oh yeah, I remember what it was. So the rock rearrangement and sort of kind of brings you to the next thing is the gifting. What do you think of that concept?
I think it's very plausible. I mean, I didn't, when I first got into it, is one of the things I probably am not going to try that because it doesn't seem feasible to me. But after this last experience I just had with these rocks being rearranged, the gifting idea is probably not too bad. The thing about gifting food, though, that's another problem because, bears eat apples, and things like that,
All right.
which could be a little difficult to figure out what took it, basically. But we've been trying. Oh gosh, his name just left my head. But there was a gentleman in Kentucky who came up with the Nutella cast, the Nutella trap idea. We've been
Oh yeah,
trying
yeah.
that. We've been trying that. What we've been doing is we'll take the Nutella jars and put them inside PVC pipes. So you have to have hands to reach in to get them out. And we haven't been opening them. That was another thing. I wanted to just leave it closed and just have it as a curiosity. So we leave the PVC pipe white so it's visible. Um, and so that's something we're trying right now. So we're leaving Nutella, but we're not opening the jars, so it's not going to be an attractant. So it
All right.
has to be a visual attractant, and then you have to have hands to get it out of the
Well,
pipe.
that makes sense.
So that's what we're trying.
Yeah.
We have
I,
not been successful.
Right. I tried that. I hung up game cameras in a circle so I couldn't miss what was going on.
Uh-huh.
And then I put in the Reese's peanut butter jars that are plastic. And
Right.
I didn't remember about the PVC, but I put them out there to see if something could open it.
Hmm.
Came back a couple days later and it was snowing really hard. And I looked at there was blood all over the snow. This was in Montana.
Oh.
And so, oh, what's going on with this? And I got up there and I thought I saw tracks, but it was snowing and they could have been mine that got washed over or something. They were big, but he could have melted and then,
Mhm.
or whatever. But anyway, in any case, they weren't discernible. So anyway, I got back to the area and everything I put out, like apples, popcorn, everything was gone. And the peanut butter was gone and there was blood everywhere. And I couldn't figure it out because the blood was real visible in the snow.
No.
Well, I finally got the trail cam out and I looked at the pictures and a pack of some kind of wild dogs had got the peanut butter and opened it and cut their lips. And the blood was all over. I thought I had got, squat,
Yeah.
but it was dogs. So I never did it again because I felt sorry for these dogs. But they were easy to track because the red spots all went up in the mountains. I
Mhm.
tracked them for quite a while and then I let them.
Wow.
But that was my bad experience.
Yeah.
So what about the vocalizations like Ron Moore's Sierra sounds and the animal
Mhm.
mimicking and things like that? What's your thoughts on those?
Oh yeah, I'm totally down with it. We've actually had Ron on our show and talked with him. Actually, I've been at a few different conferences where I've spoke with him.
Uh,
Uh, but I'm very familiar with the area he was in because we lived there for a while when I was working with the Miwoks, same area. Um, very Bigfooty, by the way, if that's a word. But we are. I have got two recordings now at night of some whooping sounds
oh,
that I can't identify. Um, we have heard uh, we've heard one sound one time that we did not get recorded, but we were out camping one night and it was early spring and we had wolves on one side of the valley going off and we had coyotes on the other side of the valley. And if you've ever heard like the Klamath screams, really large, angry sound. There was one of those screams, and then everything in the forest shut up for the
wow.
rest of the night.
Well,
It was
here's
like,
the apex predator.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I think I think they do have a language. I really do. Um, it's probably a rudimentary language, but they do have a language. Um, just like, probably dolphin level language, basically.
Right.
Uh, so, yeah, as far as the sounds go, I'm down with them. Yeah, I'm
That's
like,
cool.
yes, I do believe they do have a language. And another thing too that we've run across in our research is, my wife she has a master's degree in music, and she was a choir teacher and singer,
Right.
and and she's also a concert pianist. But we actually was visiting one of her old college professors who's a doctorate in singing and vocal sounds and things like that. And we were actually he invited us to his house for a barbecue, and we were sitting there. So I started playing Sierra sounds for him, just for fun.
Right.
And he's like, "Oh my gosh, let me listen to that again." And I played some of the ones that we recorded, and we played the Sierra sounds for him. And he was really interested. We actually had him on our show once because he was so interested in the sounds that he threw them in his computer program so he could look at the ranges and things. And he said, these sounds are in 5 octaves, and humans can only do 3 octaves at the same time when you're singing. um, he said, in other words, this thing has one more like vocal fold in its voice box. We have two. This has to have three to be able to make these sounds.
Wow.
So that to me told me, if we're out in the woods trying to mimic these things, they're like, you're missing a couple layers there, buddy. So I know you're not one of us.
Well, that's awesome. Did he say what key it was in by any chance, or what scale, or?
No, he didn't. No, he was just talked about the different octaves,
Wow,
and
that's
some of the
awesome.
whistling sounds too. That was another one. We did have a whistle sound that we recorded, and he heard that, and he said that was whistling from the throat, not from the lips. It was
Wow,
making the sounds
that
from the
speaks
throat.
volumes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we only got 1 minute left, so do you want to do it again in about 10 minutes, or would you like we could do it again like in another week or two?
Let's go another week or two,
Okay, that
because
sounds good. Then I
okay.
can develop. I'll listen to this and come up with some more questions and stuff.
Okay.
But I appreciate you being on.
Oh, thank you.
And I've just started this, so I'm kind of new at it. But it's so interesting talking to people because you'll learn so much. I've learned so
Yeah.
much from you just in half an hour.
Yeah.
That's all I don't have the I just have the free one, so it's only half
Okay.
an hour. But
Okay.
anyway, I appreciate it.
Oh, no
Uh,
problem.
I'll try to keep in touch on the media level.
Okay.
But I've been trying to get you to an interview for so long. It's great. And I'll put this stuff in the magazine too. So
Oh, thank you.
send you a copy when it's all set.
Awesome.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, have a good day. Thanks a lot.
You too. Bye.